The one that they go into the Capitol Oh, yeah, sorry. Sorry, I come from another country. Soccer, football, and soccer. Yeah, they need me to come in. They need me. I just put Mr. over there. Yeah, my email. That way it's somebody can say my name. Yeah, you're married. You know why?
This is my name. That's all I was looking about. But I didn't want to.
Testing, 1, 2, testing. So just want to give everybody a heads up. We're looking to get started maybe the next few minutes. I'm going to give about 4 or 5 minutes until a lot more residents are coming to the meeting. So if you want to take a seat, as folks come in and make sure that the application can come up.
I'm not saying that. So funny. Yeah.
My phone is. Otherwise, I would.
I can show it.
I need to get another device to do this thing.
Hey, how are you? I'm good. So good to see you.
I don't know if I want to climb over that.
Live stream.
All right, thank you.
The live stream. Everything's safe in quarantine.
Well, I'm going to say some bad words.
All right.
Heck, darn.
Jack Babbitt.
Good evening. How are you? I've been worse.
Yeah, yesterday was a very lazy day.
I kind of enjoy going out and staying for the last few nights and go to bed. But I've got too old for that. Can't play that game anymore.
I don't like staying up now.
Not paying any attention any time.
My brother has been at the biggest thought I was a lucky No. So, no, which means like on a what happened is Okay, good stop. 902 Telephone Road. And it's like less than a mile from here. Valley, Valley Club. Okay, good stop.
Testing 1, 2. Good evening, everyone. short pause as everyone finds a seat. I anticipate more folks coming. If we can, first off, my name is Joaquin Martinez. I'm your city council member for District I, so I represent Eastwood, big chunk of the East End. But if we can do one thing that would be helpful for folks that are coming in, because I anticipate more folks walking in. If you are in, and I know sometimes some of y'all might not want to move or whatnot, but if y'all can squeeze in so the outer seats are available for folks to come in, so can be a bit mindful. I appreciate that.
Eric's always brilliant. He's a good plan.
It's a non-contact sport, so we don't need to be moving too much. Okay. So we have media that's trying to get situated as well, and I want to make sure that they can capture the audio to whatever extent. So real quick, brief introductions. First off, my name is Joaquin Martinez. I'm your Houston City Councilor for District I. I want to recognize a couple of my colleagues that are here, so that way you know that this is really bigger than just District I. Right? It's bigger than the East End as well, and it's noted by my colleagues that are here. We have Councilor Maria Castillo, who represents District H. We have Councilor Martinez, who's an at-large council member. Councilmember Willie Davis, who's also an at-large council member. We have a few staff members from other offices as well, from Sally Alcorn's office, Councilmember at large. Councilmember Twyla Carter's office is also a councilmember at large. I don't know if they're here, but we made a commitment to make sure that we're speaking to our neighbors in north of us and south of us, so not just H, but also District B. Somebody from Tarsha Jackson's office should be here, District B, because we did hear at our first community meeting that 5th Ward needed to have a voice as well. We also should have somebody from Councilmember Karen Shabaz's office, who's District D, who is in the 3rd Ward area, and we heard from 3rd Ward residents as well. So as we understand that this is, it's impactful to, again, not just the East End residents specifically that I represent, and so I wanted to make sure that my colleagues were here as well. And then I wanted to also make sure that you understand that outside of the city, we also have our Congresswoman, Sylvia Garcia, if she can come up and say.
I know we want to hear the presentation and we want to get into Q&A, so I'm not going to, I didn't come with a long speech. It's not going to be a two-hour State of the Union, okay? It's going to be just I've gotten many notes, letters, calls to Texas, to Chris McCarthy, my chief of staff, he's back there. We're listening, we're here. To also get a briefing, because frankly, I don't think we got a briefing and found out about this project. He called me, so Joaquin, thank you so much for keeping me abreast. You know, I'm always concerned about these issues, that's why I'm here. It does concern me that, as usual, as we went through the Metro fight and other fights together, we're having this meeting at the back end instead of the front end.
Yes.
So process to me has always been important, and I've already mentioned it. So let's work through this. Let's be respectful. Let's make sure we give them all the time that they need to explain and answer our questions. So with that, I'm going to give you back the microphone.
Before before I go into who's here to help answer several of the questions, I just want to reiterate something that the Congresswoman mentioned, right? One of the things that I heard several, for those that might not know, I was born and raised in East End. I went to Case, Jackson, Austin. Grew up playing Little League at East End. I'm raising my kids now. My wife and I are raising our kids in the Hobby Airport area. And so one of the things that I've heard as well is, at what point, does community engagement happen? I want y'all to know that from my office and my team, we hold that to the highest standard. We've had several coffee with the council member. We've had resource fairs. We've had a 5K run at Mason Park. We're doing as much engagement as possible because we want you all to be a part of every aspect of what the city is trying to do. And so, just to reiterate a little bit of what the Congresswoman said, it did catch me off guard as well. I want to thank Lindsay Williams. Who, quite frankly, she sent me a text one morning, it was a Monday, about the signage. I was up there, I was a bit confused. And so I started getting on phone calls as well, talked to folks that you're going to be meeting today, talked to the Public Works Director as well. And so, at the end of the day, and what I've always been committed to, this is knowing that, and without trying to make a gumbo soup of everything that's going to be going on, because there are several projects that are happening. The 5945 realignment, that was going to cause already some casualties to the east-west connection. And so, as a staffer, I was a part of those conversations with Public Works as well, to say we need more east-west connection. The other thing that many of y'all know, and Lindsay, I'm going to give her another shout out. She's our train lady. We know that congestion in the East End with trains. I was raised a block away from a train my whole younger years into teenage, into I graduated from high school. And so we know that grade separation is also important. And so, again, this is something that we knew as East Enders, that we're already facing challenges. And so when we find out about the JRC process that's going on, we want to make sure that we are looking at this conversation at a higher level. Yes, there's frustrations. I want to hear them. But at the same time, after those frustrations, what are we going to do to make sure that we're making it work for all East Enders? And then, quite frankly, 5th Ward and 3rd Ward residents, 2nd Ward residents as well. I've already given Lizzie a shout out. She is our super neighborhood president for Eastwood, Lawndale. We also have super neighborhood president Priscilla Argueta, who's here with the Magnolia Park, Manchester super neighborhood. And then also Ricky Cardenas, who's the 2nd Ward super neighborhood. And I also want to make sure that you know that there are representatives from the East End Management District here, East Downtown Management District, Harrisburg TERS, which is pretty much the East End TERS for the most part, and then also the East Downtown TERS. And I'm giving these folks a shout out because I want you to know that these conversations have been happening over the last 3 weeks. Y'all probably see my face a lot more in the community when we're talking about the Polk closure. But there have been other stakeholders, the Eastern Chamber of Commerce as well, they all have an interest in what's happening with this expansion, which I'll be honest, I think the expansion is something that we do need. But now, with that expansion, that moving forward, what do we need to do now to make sure the community is bearing some of these fruits, and specifically the community that is abutting to the George R. Brown expansion, because that's the other thing that we hear, right? That East End is forgotten, second thought, and they're not bearing the fruits of the Port of Houston. They're not bearing the fruits of downtown, and so we need to start thinking in that manner as well. What I'll say before I pass it over, I also have my team here, and I want to recognize my team. We have Cristina Caballo, Priscilla Hernandez, and Juan Pablo. Where's Juan Pablo? He's working. Okay. So we don't know Edith. Edith's been on maternity leave for about 3 weeks, so we're working on fumes out of the office right now. But we're here to do the work. We're here to do the work at the end of the day. What I want is just housekeeping. We know there's a lot of interest in what's going on. We know there's a lot of questions probably still to this day. We want to make sure that we have those answers for you. And so we brought today, of course, Houston First Corporation, Michael Hedman, who's the president of Houston First. Stand up and just... we also have the district, the TxDOT representative, Michael Zentek. We have Michael. We have Metro representative Kenneth Brown and Jose Pulido. And we have folks from Public Work, Patrick Wynn, Addie Jackson, and Transcribe. These are the folks that are going to be able to answer most of your questions and not all of them. As we have this conversation moving forward, again, I just want to make sure that we're being respectful. So you should have had cards that were given to you to propose any questions you want. As you know, town halls, I love them, but sometimes one person can get the mic and have it for 15 minutes, and then it avoids other people really being able to have their voice heard as well. So we want to be as efficient as possible. And so with that, I want to thank the super neighborhoods for continuing to have these conversations with us. The community, you all for being here as well. This doesn't work without y'all. We all know that, and that's why we're here today. It doesn't work without y'all. We want to make sure that you understand that we are playing catch up. I am playing catch up, but as we catch up, we want to make sure we really catch up to what are those things that the community wants to see happen in the East End. And so I'm going to pass it over to Michael Hedman so he can go through his presentation, and then from there we'll start opening it up for Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. And thank you for pulling this together. Thank you for all of our elected officials who are here this evening. And thank all of you for taking the time out of your personal lives to be here, to not only receive some of the information and hear about what we're doing and what that may mean, but also to get your feedback to me and my team. We've done to hear some of that, but I really look forward to hearing all of that this evening. First, I want to tell you a little bit about Houston First. Houston First is the region's tourism, marketing, and advertising organization. So we promote and market Houston all over the world, not only all over the United States, but all over the world. From branding and marketing to public relations to conventions. So our job is to bring people here to spend money, to spur our economy, and to create greater visibility for broader economic development. As a part of that, though, what we also do is we operate facilities. So many of the facilities that you know in our community, from the George R. Brown to the Wortham Center to many of our facilities that we have, like Miller Outdoor Theater and a number of others that we're caretakers of on behalf of this community. So we take all of those responsibilities very seriously. Me and my team work very, very hard to try to make Houston a better place to live and to work and to bring broader economic development here. So that's a little bit about what our mission is. A little bit about myself. I moved here in the summer of 2002. Didn't know how long I would be here. Moved here for a job. Didn't know if it'd be a year or 2 years, whatever it may be. But over time, I realized, my wife and I realized, that we were falling in love with the people here. And of all the great things that we have in Houston, the greatest thing about Houston is our people. And that's part of what, if you see our advertising and the way that we market and forward, we lead with our people. We went through a branding exercise a few years ago, and that's one of the things that we leaned in on. One of our taglines was, let's make tomorrow together, because people in this community figure things out and make things better. And I hope that we're going to do that tonight with your help. I hope as part of the process that we will be able to make things better, make a better community. Look, we won't do everything right. And I will take the responsibility that we should have done these things a little bit sooner, maybe a lot sooner than what we did. Okay? Buck stops with me. I'm in charge of Houston First. I take that responsibility. I've told our council members that as we visited and met with them. But I will tell you that a little bit about how we got to here, okay? So we started thinking about what we may want to do to be able to stay competitive as a city. Houston does not get a lot of money from Austin, from the state, okay? That's well documented over time that we just haven't had that opportunity. So in the 2023 legislative session, we took an opportunity to then Senator Whitmire with a plan that we needed to revitalize the eastern edge of downtown and reconnect it to the east end. And we had a vision, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, about how we could do that. The senator bought into that plan and that vision. He went and sold it then to his colleagues in the Senate and then ultimately passed it in the House. And what does that mean? That means roughly $2 billion of funding, project dedicated, from the state coming into this community that otherwise we would not have received. And what is that funding? It is not your tax dollars. I want to be very clear about that. The mayor's very clear about that. This project is not using general fund dollars, okay? It is state hotel occupancy tax. So otherwise, if it weren't coming here, the state would have sent it somewhere else and they'd have spent it on whatever they may spend it on, okay? So that's a really good win to have that level of investment into this community. So it's roughly $2 billion over the next 30 years that will come into this community to help pay for the project. We ultimately passed that. We last year started to move forward on how we would move forward on a development. We onboarded our development manager, Houston-based Himes, who's here this evening. First. Then we needed an architect. We onboarded an architect, which was Populous, who was the foremost architect in the world for convention center development and district making. And then we added our convention manager at the end, our construction manager at the end of last year. So these onboarding of these things and drawings and all the rest happened towards the end of last year. So just to orient you a little bit with some of the timing. So that's where we are. Now I'm going to walk you through a little bit about our approach and how we ultimately decided on the approach that we had and what it will ultimately mean. Many of you probably have not seen these images, okay? So I want to be able to walk through them. This is the current condition as to what you see from the east looking to downtown to the west. You see the freeway that is there. And I will tell you that when we started looking at what a vision could be to ultimately go past legislation, we knew that the highway project was a done deal, okay? The TxDOT highway project was a done deal. We knew what that roughly would look like. We created a vision around that, understanding that that was going to be the case, okay? That you're going to have the depressed freeway. It's not going to come depressed all the way down. It's going to be depressed to about halfway, and then it comes back up. So that creates a lot of disruption. Ultimately, I think when it's done, it will be really great. But that takes a lot of disruption. I think TxDOT's been real clear about that. They've held a lot of public meetings and a lot of messaging. That's already been litigated in the past, okay? So I'm not here to do that. But what I want you to understand is how we created or thought about our vision, okay? So this was the current standing. So understanding that there's eventually going to be a 30-acre cat park, and cat park is basically a green space that will be on top of the freeway. It will be at grade level, and that means you will be able to just walk across it, okay? That means it's at a normal level. So that's a problem right now, because this building, for years and years and years, has had its back to the east end. We understand that. We understand that there's loading docks and other things, that there's no east side. The freeway's there, okay? I also understand that that's been a difficult thing for East End businesses and other things. I will tell you that our convention clients really like to walk over to the east side. It's not terribly easy to do, okay? They want to get out of downtown. They want to go see some of those businesses that are on the east side. We wish it were easier, okay? And eventually it will be. So as we thought about how do we really create a great district, and if you create a great district and something that restitches neighborhoods from the long divide that was from the east side to downtown, how can we do that? How can we improve our convention center at the same time and create something that people from all over the country want to come visit? But as importantly, is something that Houstonians will enjoy. Not just for the folks that are right next door, but from people. But look what's been done with Discovery Green. Discovery Green has been a gem for our entire community, not just for downtown. People come from all over the city and enjoy it. And that was a really smart and bold and creative public-private partnership that ultimately created that, okay? So that informed a lot of our thinking because we saw the success of Discovery Green. We saw how much it meant to our convention district. And in fact, our organization spent a lot of money right before the Super Bowl in 2017 taking Avenue de las Americas, which runs in front of the George R. Brown, and shrunk it from 8 lanes to 2. Okay? And what did that do? It created a plaza in front of the George R. Brown. It created much greater connectivity between Discovery Green and the plaza that's in front of the convention center. We now do programming out there that is free for anyone in the community that wants to come. And we've seen a lot of success with that. So that really informed our thinking. The green space was highly attractive. Now that we're going to have a green space on what is currently the back of the building, but we'll soon have a building that will have 2 front doors. Okay? So this informed our thinking on this. It wasn't just, let's create the brand new space for conventions. Certainly that we want to do that because that helps pay the bills and bring in more revenue and create jobs and all the things that are related to that. But to do that, we had to take the existing E you see there, and if we were going to tear out the middle of the building, which I can tell you, very few people in my job across the country would advocate for tearing the middle of their convention center out. But that is what we thought about. What if we did that? And to do that, we would then have to move and create the GRB to the south building that is then connected currently where the Hilton parking garage sits and the Rustic sits, okay? So, if we did that, it created an avenue, if you will, a walkable avenue, that you will see that connects the green space to green space, truly opening up downtown to the east end, okay? In addition to that, when we rethink the George R. Brown, we're going to create an eastern-facing front. It will no longer be the back of the house. We'll install retail and restaurants and other things that will serve that area. And I can tell you that if you look at Discovery Green, and I tell this story often, if you look at the private investment that has come around Discovery Green, not by the government, it hasn't needed huge subsidies, but private investment that has come in around Discovery Green, I can promise you that when that cat park is created on the east side, it will spur economic activity. And we wanted to help encourage that the best that we can. So again, this would create really 3 front doors. A would be to the east side, B, Discovery Green, and then C is another front door that would connect then to Toyota Center with a plaza, which I'm going to show you here in a moment. This is an artist rendering of what we envision that promenade that would cut directly through the George R. Brown that would look like, that would connect the eastern side of downtown with downtown. A walkable space that people can connect through, okay? Because once you go to the south, that's the freeway. You're not going to be able to walk across there. So that highly informed our thinking on what that could potentially be. So here's a look at what this could potentially look like by roughly 2038, okay? When, I know, it seems like a long time. It seems like a long time, but that's when the highway project will be done. Okay? So we have to think that far ahead. So you've got the cat park that would be completed. You've got the connectivity through the building to Discovery Green, and that's ultimately what this could look like, and then with the south end to the George R. Brown. Now, I want to address a few things. So understanding that the connectivity between east and west is highly important. Okay? From the feedback that we have been getting, not only from our council members, a lot of conversation with Council Member Martinez, who has been advocating and helping us directly understand how important this is. I think that you all should know that. Is to understand that Polk Street, as it currently exists, with the highway project, will not exist as it does today. Okay? So the agreement that was made by TxDOT and the City of Houston was for Polk, which I believe is here. This is the finished condition of the project. Polk would then come up, make a right, come down, loop around, and then ultimately it was to make a right onto Polk Street. Now, understanding that under this scenario, with the buildings connected, the south building connected for contiguous space that we have to be able to sell, is we initiated conversation with the city months ago about how we address that. And we arrived at making Leland a two-way street that currently does not exist. Okay? So there needs to be greater connectivity between the east and the west to be able to do that. So when it's finished, you would come back down what is New Hamilton, as opposed to making the right onto Polk. You would then make the right, then ultimately on to. Now, this is one more look at it. I don't think this shows you a lot more. This shows you the south building as connected with the plaza and what that can ultimately mean. This informs, I think, a little bit about what that street coverage would potentially look like. This is the event plaza that we will be creating, that will create a gathering spot for our community. It will not only be for convention use, okay? This is a place that will be like the Avenida, a place for programming, a place for gathering, a place for people to be able to coordinate. So this is the reason that we have talked to the city about what we need to be able to build that building, and that would connect the building there across Polk Street, which would eliminate it there for about a two block scenario. So this is what the east-west corridor could look like, with Leland being that east-west connection. And I can tell you that this is a priority of the mayor's to get this done in an expeditious fashion. I understand the feedback that we have heard, which is some of that stuff is a long way from now. But if Polk is going to close, we need to know when and how we are going to get from the east side to downtown. Okay? We have heard that. We understand that. Okay? We are going to be working expeditiously with the city to be able to create that and make that a reality as quickly as possible. This is ultimately then what it like towards the end of the project in the late 2030s.
Yeah, I'll be dead by then.
I hope we're all still here by then. Look, I recognize it, okay? It is a long time, but that is what the highway project will take. So we have to think about what the eventualities will be for that period of time. We do understand that, okay? I want to let you all know that we do recognize it, and that we are going to work as hard as we can to make sure that connectivity east and west is preserved. There may be other options. We've had discussion with the city on potentially other options as well, and they have been fruitful. and we will be able to share that information out as it becomes available, including timelines and what construction schedules would look like and many other things. So we have heard the feedback, we have heard the reality that it is important to be able to understand and have a clear path to be able to get from the east into downtown. And it is something that this is the plaza that will be finished in front of the south building that will have programming and events and art installations and other things that will be free, of course, to our entire community. I fully recognize and have heard it that there is frustration with decades that goes back a long way for this community. And one of the things that we also heard was, well, there's projects that are promised, then they're never delivered. Okay, we've also heard that. We have heard a number of other pieces of feedback that I think inform folks' frustration. I also recognize that you feel like we're late to the game. Again, I take that. I feel responsible for that. But we are here to engage. We are here to answer your questions, to present, and I want you to understand that this is not something where we just solely looked at a convention center and didn't think about anything else. Reconnected.
But journalists, big money decisions.
Reconnecting the neighborhoods was very important to us, and we will spend a considerable amount of money to be able to do that and to create that connectivity. So our team worked very hard to be able to do that. And I appreciate you listening to my presentation. Councilmember, happy to answer any questions that have come up.
Thank you. Yeah, we give them a round of applause. So, before, I think my team and I think some of the leadership from the super neighbors, we're going to go around picking up a lot of these cards. If you can just hand them over. And I know the neighborhood very well. And 2038 sounds far away. But Discovery Green wasn't built as well in a year or two. And a lot of things that happen in our city take time. And if we think about just now, about what impacts just me right now, we really are losing sight of your neighbors that are younger than you. Many of y'all have kids as well, grandkids. This project is part of what they're going to be able to say is Houston as well, as Houstonians. And so, and again, I just want to make sure that we're coming into this thinking about not just today, March the 17th, 2025, but we're also thinking about what else is this project going to lend itself to, to the community, to the East End specifically, but then also to our neighbors in the 3rd and 5th Ward. As we pick up these cards, I want to thank our team and of course the super neighborhood. Michael more than likely will be taking most of the questions, because I think a lot of it has to do with the Northern Brown expansion and then the Polk JRC process. But we do have Public Works here to speak to what a possible timeline would look like for Leland to be transformed into East-West. We also have folks from Public Works with real estate to talk about the JRC process for those that are not aware of it. I think Amy had mentioned something, Amy Erickson had mentioned, is the JRC process broken? Something that they'll probably even share with you. This application is no different than any other application that has happened in the JRC process. It's a joint referral committee process. Usually there's almost zero engagement, maybe 2 or 3 calls on it, and it's really just to ask questions. The engagement with the JRC process, and I want to thank the director and his team for extending the comment period to April 3rd. I think this is probably the most engagement that they've received ever, and so, which is a good thing. And so they're here to speak to that process. We also have folks from Metro. I know the 40 and the 41 is something, some of you all take that going into downtown. So what does that look like? And what was it going to look like with the textile project as well? Yes, this is fast tracking Polk a bit more. But with that said, what is Metro doing as well to ensure that ridership continues to be where it needs to be? We also have folks from TxDOT, and without pulling an old Band-Aid, I think we're at a point, as Michael mentioned, it's been litigated already. We are where we are, and so we need to make sure that, if anything, TxDOT being here, if there's any questions that y'all might have had, it's not to say that why are y'all doing this project. It's not the question anymore, right? The question now is, how is this project moving forward? What is the timeline? Where are you in design? And I doubt they're in design right now, but just some of those more higher level questions. And I think for Public Works, Metro, TxDOT, and of course Michael, and I'll be up here as well to help facilitate some of the questioning. If there's anything that Johnny can bust, I'm more than happy to have my colleagues to come up here if y'all want to hear from them. This is, and I've been saying this is a conversation that I want to make sure we're having as open, transparent. You're hearing the timeline, what their deadline as far as when they started with the bill that then pushed 2 years ago. And so we're here to answer those questions. In addition to, I want to make sure that we are finding solutions that you can see that are amenable to the community as well. And so we'll start taking the cards. There's two that are grouped up as timeline questions, and I'll read a couple of those. So the cat park is a key. Testing. The cat park is key to reestablishing some of the east-west connection to the east end, but it is not currently funded. Who will pay for the cat park? What guarantees do we have that it will actually happen? And what is the timeline for building it and reestablishing our connection that you are removing?
So, no, it is not funded yet. That's not required to be funded for some time. I would say that would be a very robust public-private effort to have that built. I mean, there's a lot of leaders around the community that are already engaged in that process of what that could potentially look to raise the funds to be able to get that done. It is highly important to the leadership of Houston to get that done. I can tell you all the way up to the mayor to make sure that it is designed the right way. We are in discussion with TxDOT right now about what the foundation needs to be to have the right level of programming on that to be done. So the TxDOT project will be under construction, as I understand it, from about 31 to maybe 37. Is that right? Right? 31 to 37. So think about that being complete. That's why we've used the 2038 date as when that would be completed.
Do y'all have anything to add for TxDOT? No? You want to come up? Go ahead and come up here. This is to the cat park.
So Steve Hernscher, I serve as a consultant at TxDOT on the 45 program. TxDOT will be building from Lamar to Commerce that will be capped. With the roaming networks and the things on, the cap is there. So the funding is generally the amenities and the things that need to go above that or some additional strengthening depending on what the different parties want to put on it. So there will be a cap, and now it's a matter of how much dollars to be raised and what those improvements are.
Thank you. If a two-way lead-in is proposed alternative, what is the timeline for the overhaul to be done? Will Houston First foot the bill for this? How will they cross the busy West Delta freight rail, which is at Leland and Tully? In the future, if TxDOT utilizes Leland as a freeway access point, how will you ensure it remains safe for all road users? So, we first TxDOT, will y'all use it as a freeway access point?
So Leland is always going to be crossing 69. It was always proposed to cross 69, whether it was one-way or two-way. We will have exit ramps coming out of 69 in the southbound direction, and they'll be able to access. So one of the key things we do is connect Hamilton. Today, Hamilton doesn't connect from the north side of the convention center to the south side. We'll route around the convention center, connect that so you have the continuous southbound movement. You'll exit to that roadway that'll continue down. And so Leland, PD, St. Joseph, all of those will cross Leland in that respect. Or across Hamilton, excuse me. Leland across Hamilton and San Emmanuel on the other side. Leland itself, you'll be able to turn left on San Emmanuel and get to an entrance ramp as well going northbound.
Just want to make sure we answer that question. So Leland will be east-west, but St. Emmanuel will be the access point to the freeway. If you're going north.
What about the train?
One second. One second. We'll answer that one. So let's talk about the timeline, and Public Works is here as well to help with a little bit more of those conversations. But Houston first is taking the lead on Leland, just so that folks know.
Right, so we've been in robust discussion with the city to try to marry the transition of Leland to a two-way as close to when the time that Polk would need to close as possible. And the next question will be, well, when do you think Polk would need to close? We anticipate that will probably around October. So around October is when that when that date would be. So we're working to expedite that process with the city as much as we can to get those as close to we possibly can. As far as the payment of it, we're working with the city on how all that gets sorted out, but we're.
And as far as the rail crossing, so this is something that's been a challenge in Easton for decades. And we have had some conversations already with Metro, and I think it was shared at their unveiling of Metro Now that they're dedicating about $100 million to grade separation. The priority, I will say, is going to be Lockwood. That is one of the we've had a pilot program going on since 2017. We have numbers that speak to what the length of trains are, how many vehicles are traveling through there, how long the train is, how long is it blocking, if it is blocking, pedestrian numbers as well. And so we have those numbers to speak to why Lockwood needs to be first. There's opportunities to call. It's a whether you believe it or not, that's a win for East End. Lockwood, to have grade separation at Lockwood is a win, and you might disagree with me. So that's a conversation that we'll have, once Metro starts identifying that project, to make sure it doesn't chop the neighborhood in half. But at the end of the day, for those that are first responders, for those that are traveling in the morning to take their kids to school, if you don't, right now folks are going all the way to Sampson, New York, or even further out to come back around into the East End. So grade separation is a priority for me as your council member. Anywhere I can get a grade separation, I'm going to fight for that for you. And so there's opportunities for Leland to also be a part of those conversations as well. And I am going to continue to advocate for Leland. We also have Lawndale and Telephone that also need to see grade separation. My kids go to KIPP. Sorry for those that live around KIPP that y'all see the backed up lines for school. But again, we need to see more access in the East End. Sorry?
What are you doing about that?
What am I doing about what?
More access on the East End. I mean,
Yeah.
here we are. Nobody's been consulted.
We're gonna stick to the cards, and I'll answer some of those questions after this.
All right.
No, I'm not. I'm going in order. They're right here. Right here. Calmado. So one of the questions that was asked as well was the timeline. So it was already answered.
That has been answered.
Yes.
How does
The timeline,
No,
if
no.
I can answer,
Question.
1 second, please. When will Polk close? Was October-ish. Leland, the timeline is as closely as possible to that October date. As closely as possible to that
How does
October
this
date.
plan work with TxDOT's plan to keep Polk open?
I'm sorry?
How does this plan work with TxDOT's plan to keep Polk open?
So the TxDOT project, that was gonna stay open until 31-ish maybe? Until they started the project.
We're here from TxDOT.
We're gonna keep moving on with the cars because we're gonna get sidetracked and we're not gonna answer the cards that people have already written. So,
You can have us ask the questions then, instead of using your discretion. We sat through the staff introduction, which is fine, but all of us are taking our time right now. So to be
Yes.
efficient of time.
you're wasting time right now though.
Well, to be frank, free informed prior consent is what's important.
So-
You serve on the board of directors as an ex officio board
That's
member,
correct.
and you didn't know about this,
That's
correct? So I think perhaps instead of
We're
using
gonna-
these frameworks, that
we're-
we should have the opportunity to ask.
So we are, the opportunity to ask is here.
But asking in person, because
One,
ours don't get answered.
we're not gonna get anywhere, continue to just yell. There's people that have written their comments, questions, and I wanna get to that. So be respectful to them.
Councilmember has set up a system so that we can keep a record of these questions. They may not get answered now, but at least we have these questions on record. The longer we run into delays, we respect, your right to free speech and say what you need to say. The longer we run into delays, the fewer questions that get answered here in person.
So we're trying to get out of here by 8. The room closes at 8, so I'm trying to get through these questions as quickly as possible. Okay, which interfere with I'm not understanding this question. Houston First is closing Bell. TxDOT is using it as an exit ramp, and Metro is using Bell to reroute 40 and 41 bus. Is there a coordinated use plan and a timeline for rerouting construction impacting on the east end? And I think we can call up Metro to answer what the rerouting looks like. You're here. Yeah, Bell is not closing, by the way. So we'll wrote this question. So the rerouting, what does that look like?
Yes, I think in the document that was handed out, I included an example or a rendering of what that reroute will require. So to be able to get around the local.
We can't hear you back here.
I'm sorry, I apologize. The mic's going in and out. Can you hear me a little better?
Yeah.
And I'm available after the meeting to talk as well, but we'll be using a combination of Emancipation and Leland, and once we get into town, we'll use LaGrange and Austin to get back to the regular route. So that's what we're looking at right now, and that's based on the current configuration of the street network in and out of downtown to the east end.
So it's Polk, then Leland, Polk turn left, then Leland, then
So
Emancipation, and then
if you're coming eastbound, we're actually on Lamar, then we would travel south via Austin, travel south and north via Austin and LaGrange to Leland, and then we keep traveling west to Emancipation, north, and then back to Polk. So that's going to impact about 5 stops. We're trying to minimize the impact as much as possible, but of course, the street network is what guides us.
That's the same way going the different other direction, right?
Yeah, so
And Emancipation and Polk is just one road going 2 ways, so turning left is really difficult on a green yield light.
yeah, so we're going to, before we make any modification, we're going to do a bus test, right, to make sure that, but this is the preliminary decision that we've made based on what we understand. But we're going to do a bus test to confirm that we can actually perform those movements safely.
Yeah, because in the morning, especially, it backs up all the way almost to the light rail already.
So I put these down, we can pick them back up, but because Metro's up here, there's a stack of Metro questions, we're gonna go through these as quickly as possible. And I don't know if you spoke to this already, but how long do you think it takes for the bus to commute to get to point A to point B on average? And I don't know what point A to point B is, but I'm assuming east end to downtown?
Well, so what's gonna happen, we do, and I think it is also outlined in the packet, whoever put that together did a good job. But we factor in how much additional time is required for us to make that movement. And so if it's more time than the schedule will allow for us to maintain reliability, what we have to do is add additional equipment. So that's what we'll go in and investigate to see, hey, what does it look like during those peak periods where traffic is a little bit heavier? And if we have to add another bus to supplement the service in order to be able to maintain reliability, that's what we'll do. But those things will be taken into consideration when we make the change.
I'm trying to ask this in a question form, but it's just from an East Downtown neighborhood resident. Texas Street impacted by train traffic and metro. Closure of Capitol, small portion for soccer stadium. Metro Rail, very inconvenient. Takes 2 trains to get to where I want to be in downtown. And then a right circuit, it's unavailable, there's no success right now. I guess if you could speak to, let's see, let me try to make that all into a question to some extent. So we're seeing a lot of essentially impacted by train traffic and closures during games. Can you speak a little bit, I guess, to north of the Georgia Brown and what that east-west connection looks like? And then right circuit as well.
So I'm not aware of any additional changes that we'll be making. I know that we used to operate on segments of Texas, but we've abandoned those segments in recent years. And so now we're primarily, on streets like Polk, Lamar, and now we'll be moving to Leland for a segment as well. But as far as the other concerns, those are things we can take back and take into consideration that you brought those to our attention.
And so this one is, so the closing Polk will result in permanent negative changes to Metro routes 40, 41, we spoke to that, which together provides about 5,500 rides each weekday. The route will be 2,000 feet longer with 4 additional traffic lights and 2 additional left turns, resulting in a trip that is 2 to 3 minutes longer each way. The new stops will now be up to 900 feet further from the George R. Brown. To be clear, the George R. Brown expansion is a greater cause of these changes in the TxDOT project. How will Houston First, the city, Metro work to make sure transit to GRB, Discovery Green is better and not worse during and after construction? And actually, there's another question that's on maybe the timeline. So, where are we design right now? Where's this design? Schematics, is it high schematics, 30%, 40% for George R. Brown? We don't have anything for TxDOT right now, from what I understand. So, as far as coordinating, as you turn in your plans to the city of Houston, one of the things that happens is you create a traffic plan, it gets submitted as well. I don't know if we're there yet, and so I guess to the expansion, what does the timeline look like for construction? I think you gave a little bit of that, but as far as submitting, where are you percentage-wise as well?
Yeah, I would have Hines speak to that. The first section, the south building, we anticipate opening in May of 2028. So that would be for the first phase of what we consider for the expansion. And before I hand it over to Hines, I can assure everyone that getting to places that we are making for gathering places, we want to make that as easy and as convenient as possible. And so we will work with Metro, we will work with the city, we'll work with all of the potential partners to be able to make that as easy as we possibly can. So that I can't commit. So John, a bit about schematic design.
Sure. Real quickly, I'm John News with Hines. We serve as the building manager for the project, similar to what we did when we developed Hilton Americas, and we represented the Rockets in the development of Toyota Center. So relative to the timeline, that's actually a really good question in that we are more advanced in some areas like utility design because we have to do a tremendous amount of utility relocation to enable the site to be buildable. Relative to drawings, I would put us overall high schematics, overall. Some disciplines are slightly more advanced, others are significantly behind, but I would put it generally under if you blended it all together.
So Polk is savable.
No, not under the current plan.
You should change it.
Yep.
Where will we live?
How will bike,
Oh, no, just in reference to the ridership, and the individual who put that together. So what they provided was daily ridership on both those routes combined. So the 480 Telephone Heights serves northwest Houston and southeast Houston. But the stops that are going to be impacted are 5 stops, 4 on Polk Street and 1 on Lamar. The ones that are going to see a very significant impact are those that are going to be beyond that 900 feet distance that was pointed out. The stops at Emmanuel, there are 2 stops there. Yeah.
It's a one-sided meeting, you're not listening to people who don't want this. You just tell us what y'all gonna do.
So the distance is 900 feet, so those are the complicated issues that we're gonna have to try and figure out, because that is a great distance for folks to walk. There are 2 stops near the GRB that are gonna be 900 feet away from Leland, so that's gonna be something we're gonna try to work to resolve, and we'll be examining that moving forward.
It's not just the riders of those stops, it's
Yes.
everybody who rides the bus.
Yes, access to the GRB is compromised, but like I said, we're aware of that. We're not minimizing that fact. But there are 5,500 or more people who utilize that service. And so if at any point they want to get access to the GRB, it has changed significantly. So we
How
do
is it
understand.
okay for a private company to just change your routes and affect all of these residents? Just because you can't sit it down right now.
So,
You knew for over a year, you had these people contracted for over a year and didn't listen to the community. We're here now telling you, we don't like your plan, we want an alternative. What alternatives do you have that involve a skyway over Polk?
I understand, and we've heard that, and, you know, understanding that.
No, you haven't heard it.
We have heard that question, we have looked at that, and that was one of the things that we had looked at from the beginning, is can we make that work? And it doesn't, because of the contiguous nature
hasn't opened.
of the way that conventions are sold. It is not possible. I do want to.
Why did we not have input at the planning stage?
There was a question about a private company. We are not a private
Company. I just want to clear that up. We're a local government corporation formed by the city of Houston. So while we
corporation
our name, we do what we do
on behalf of the city of
Houston.
So you work for us.
Okay.
Lack of transparency.
Okay, so the next question, and this is for those that are bike riders as well. How will bike commuters be accommodated during the construction? And do you have any idea?
Flying bikes.
One second, guys. So I mentioned this earlier. 1 second, please. I mentioned this earlier, right? There's a traffic plan that goes into your submission of whatever.
Apparently not.
1 second, please. There's a traffic plan that is submitted within your all your construction documents whenever you're at that 100%, essentially. I am assuming that they don't have that traffic plan yet. One second, please. I would love to hear some of your thoughts on what other routes need to be opened up during this. We can share that with Hines as well. You know, we have folks here that are Bike Houston that I think what I've heard, they enjoy some of this connection. I hope they would speak up to this connection as well.
Polk is the only safe bike route from here to there. From the
Yes.
city.
We also have, if you know East Downtown well, we also have the Columbia Tap. The Columbia.
Look at the map. Look at the map.
I know it. I ride my bike through there, Cal.
Did you go
So,
downtown?
yes, I've done it.
It
So, 1 second, 1 second. So for the bike, let me get back on track, because again, this is where it gets off the rails, and then we don't get to answer the rest of the questions. So the bike commute to accommodate your construction, I'm assuming, what's a good timeline for when y'all will have any of those documents submitted to the city? So within 2 to 3 months. So within 2 to 3 months, and we'll share that with you all, what that traffic plan looks like. We're going to continue to share more information as we get it as well.
Really?
That's after
the vote.
What's your ad?
You've already made the decision.
So we'll move on to the next question.
This is private use of public property.
We need to go back to the blight question. School starts in September. If it's going to be closed in October, how are the students between downtown, UH main campus, and TSU going to bicycle commute? Polk is the connection to the Columbia town.
We're gonna continue with the park.
You didn't finish the previous question.
There's no answer to that right now. I did. There is no answer to that right now. Okay, so this is
A short-sighted plan.
this is 2038 is a long way from now. Why does Polk have to be closed now? Many of us invested in this area to be connected to downtown. So why does that?
For the expansion to the south, which will enable the work to the north, that is what has to be done to get the project underway. And again, the building from the continuity of operation needs to be connected to the current building as it is. And you know, I've heard the feedback that just build it over the top. We did look at that, but it's something that was not feasible to take the project forward.
Why?
Why?
Why wasn't it feasible? It's a fair question.
It isn't feasible because of the nature of the convention business that needs to have contiguous, large space to be able to do it.
Dallas does it. Dallas does it.
Dallas has 3 streets that go through the convention center and the Mississippi Railroad.
It becomes a feature and not a bug.
So this one has to do with businesses being impacted. So how will you how will you assess impact to the East End businesses? How will you support East End businesses? I don't know if you have any comments to that when it comes into the build out. Usually, this is my experience, whenever there's been construction projects, especially at major thoroughfares, specifically in East Downtown, and I'll just ask this question, right? FIFA's coming next year, and that's going to be a lot of people that are going to need access, whether it's walkable, whether it's cycling, whether it's vehicular. What conversation are you having with FIFA as well when it comes to those, you know, what is that going to look like next year, but then also any impact to business.
Organization.
Kyle, I need you to work with me, man. You're gonna keep interrupting, we're gonna keep stopping. I need you to work with me. Let's hear all the questions as much as possible.
As a result of being downtown for over 6 decades, we have felt the pain you're talking about. So when the first light rail went in north-south, past a tremendous amount of both residential but more office buildings, we saw how that affected a large number of at-grade businesses, retail businesses, mom and pop businesses, and it also affected our buildings because we didn't have food service to give to our people. We then saw a similar thing happen, but a little less so when we added the East-West Metro later on, approximately, I think 10 years later. So we are hypersensitive to making sure that we disrupt that as little as possible because we've had it on us, okay? We don't like to disrupt the urban grid any more than you do because it affects us. We have, we actually help keep an eye on about 7 million feet of space downtown in some of the larger office buildings, you know, but also several residential buildings. So it matters to us that that's done as efficiently and as least disruptively as possible.
So our focus is, again, opening up, if there's a street that will be closed, opening up another thoroughfare that will be there. But as our role as a destination marketing organization, we help promote businesses all over the city, including many on the east side. And we spend a lot of time getting to know those folks, getting to know those businesses, many small businesses that we help go out and promote. So that's just part of who we are. You know, to the extent that to the extent there is a closure and hopefully a reopening around that same time of another east-west thoroughfare. The construction on the convention center itself will be on 4 city blocks. It will be contained to that area. So we don't think that there will be additional.
Have you assessed the impact to these businesses? Is the convention center worth ruining those businesses in the east side?
I'll answer that. So we see from the business that we bring in a tremendous amount of business that is driven into the east side. This plan will accelerate that. This plan will bring more people to support those businesses and ultimately will create jobs in this community.
If they can get there. That's not supported by your own data on your own website. It shows that over 50% of the visitation that happens to Houston is for family. The biggest conference that happened at George R. Brown just happened last week, Sarah Week. Magnolia Park, Manchester, Smith Addition, Harrisburg. The communities that I represent as a super neighborhood council member did not get any economic impact from that. This is what's undergirding this conversation. Well, the convention center is going to happen. No, we haven't had that discussion first. And that's how you're approaching us. Polk has to close down for this southward expansion of the convention center. We didn't have that discussion, and everybody in this auditorium found out about this expansion through news media less than 2 weeks ago. Right?
We've been having a conversation for more than about 3 weeks already. We've had the conversation at the Eastwood Civic Club meeting. Then we had our first meeting. Right? And then we had Houston First is just showing up, correct. But we've been having this conversation. This isn't so.
Who's we? Yeah. Who's been having this conversation?
There's folks that are in this room that have been in these meetings as well.
Why? There was one meeting.
No, there was one at Houston First as well.
Joaquin, we started these meetings a lot longer than that. I was serving on the super neighborhood when we had the route was going to come down Houston Avenue. I just shared a text a few minutes ago that I posted in 2015 about the closing of Polk. Those discussions were happening at that time.
Yes.
And we've been asking ever since then, and a meeting before that as well, what are we going to do about Polk? How are we going to keep that open?
Yes, and prior to the JRC process, and that was a conversation we had Eastwood Civic Club meeting 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, after the file.
So prior to the JRC application that was submitted by Houston First, the reroute, it was still closed because folks in here said it was already closed because of the textile project. The reroute was still going to allow for vehicular traffic along Polk. And so that was something we were in this room years back, and Senator Alvarado was in this room as well, advocating for it to stay open to textile. And so that reroute was what essentially was going to happen.
Textile maps outside show that Polk is open.
Yeah, that's correct.
Why can't there be a bridge over the freeway for Polk? They
I'm
can construct
gonna
a
keep
bridge,
going
they're
through the
going to be
questions.
torn up. Why can't there be a
Sis.
bridge?
The streets first, because that hasn't been clarified yet.
One second, yeah. What companies is Houston First offering to the East End? We have heard none. Who is funding the cat park? And I'll take that question. As you've heard, right now there is no funding for the cat park. We know that. We've known that. We've known that when Texas was building the cap. But there are opportunities now because of what then Senator Whitmire proposed as a bill. And this hot tax, I think there was another question, and I might just go ahead and address that. This hot tax is not general fund dollars. It's not. Yes, they are taxes, and essentially it's your sales tax that goes back to the state that we're now bringing back to Houston through this bill. And so it's not your ad valorem, your property tax that we're taking away to do any of this. And so again, I just want to make sure that we're clear as to where the funding is coming from.
How can a corporation get $2 billion to spend as they wish without any community engagement?
As far as the community engagement, I'm with you, I agree. I've talked to Michael about this 3 weeks ago whenever I first found out. That we didn't know about the JRC process.
Then how can you be for this? How can you not stand up and say, we need more time to figure this out?
So we've extended the comment period. The process for us, the process for us, ultimately that JRC application is vetted through 5 different departments: fire, police, public works, planning, and then it eventually comes to the city council for a vote.
And
You
without
can vote
any,
no.
and without
So-
any mobility impact study.
So there hasn't been, and that was another question, so we'll share that with you right now. There hasn't been any mobility impact study. But there, listen, please. So the reroute for Polk was already done years back.
It's not true, it's open on the text map.
I said the reroute, Cal. The reroute, it is open on text maps, and I said that was done.
But not the closure of Polk.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
One of the biggest bones of contention with this whole thing, with all due respect, Councilman Martinez, and you, sir, why were we not included in the process at the get-go? And everybody's approaching us as if it's a done deal. Thank you.
For over a year.
Thank you.
They contracted people over a year ago, and they could have brought the community in at that time, and you chose not to. So you need to do something now to take our voice into account and our input into account.
Deny the abandonment.
Yeah, so we, again, I'll reiterate what I said earlier. We should have been to the table earlier, okay? I take that, folks.
What are you gonna do about it?
We have heard the feedback of what it is that the community is looking for, which is that connection from east to west. And we're working very hard with the city to ensure that
You need to work
remains.
with the community.
That remains. That is what our commitment is, to work to be able to do.
A walkable plaza does not replace a major thoroughfare for cars, metro, and bicycles.
Wait a minute, I have been on Polk Street for 73 years. I own an automotive business on Polk Street there for 73 years, and I was just notified last week that this was happening. Why?
Yeah, no, it is a good question.
And
It's
you're gonna close
it's
this Polk, and it's gonna hurt my business. Way to go.
this is I can't remember who mentioned it. This is the crux of why we're here. Why Houston First is here.
Crust is burnt, so do something else.
To tell us we're screwed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're essentially telling us it's a bad deal.
Make it right.
Stop the project until you get it right. Stop the project until you get it right. You started off wrong, stop it, and restart it the right way.
Because right now it's all on the paper.
That's it. I just have to say, this is what should have happened from the beginning.
Agreed.
Okay, and the only reason why we're in this auditorium having this meeting tonight is because of the community pushback. Forgive me, I gotta get out of here.
So as I mentioned to you from the get-go, engagement is important, and we are here. Yes, there's community pushback, but I will tell you, in the community, the folks that I've spoken to in the community have known that this has been a frustration for me as well. So, did Houston First have to be here? Yes. One second. Yes, they had to be here. That's why they're here. But did they have to be here? Did Public Works? Did we have to have this meeting? No. Right? But we're doing it, and I'm saying this in all honesty, we're doing this because this is important to me as well. This is important to me as well. It's important that we have, this is important to me as well. This is important to me as well, and we're going to continue to stay on top of this to see East-West connection. So,
It's done. Let him finish, please.
so where we are now, I don't like where we are now either. Michael knows this. I've talked to the mayor about this several times. I've talked to our public works director. We are late to the train. We have been late to the train. And so my goal is to make sure that we are finding ways to increase East-West connection, finding ways to make sure that East End residents aren't congested with blockages at grade crossings. And so what I want to hear from you as well, I hear stop the project.
So don't break it in the first place.
Change the design.
Just fix it.
A bridge over 59 for Polk Street.
Can we separate the JRC application into two applications, one with Hamilton, Bell, and Polk? Those can wait, and a different one with Clay, Jackson, Jennifer. Let them go for that. I don't think anyone opposes those.
So we process the applications as they're received. If it's something that's amended, if there's another plan, they would need to resubmit through the JRC portal.
Miss Jackson, will Bell close?
From what we've seen, Bell hasn't closed. Bell will not close. There is a portion of Bell in the application, but that portion, so the Bell right-of-way is pretty wide. The portion of Bell that's included does not impact the street.
Bell Street,
Near.
where we are, I think is what you're asking about, will not close. That is not the plan to close.
Why is that? Tell us which streets aren't closing. We deserve to know.
Yeah, friend, do you want to come up and talk through this? Friend Reggie can get more specificity to this.
Since you're talking about that, can you explain why it doesn't extend to the north and not to the south? Rusk and Capitol take you nowhere except the soccer stadium is already interrupted by I-45. Why not in the north? Why do you expand to the south?
I'll answer that and then we'll get
The question
is
it's already built, it's a building there.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
It's parking right now, it's just one building. You're demolishing a lot of it to the south.
To quickly answer which Hamilton, Clay, Schinnever, Jackson, and Polk.
those are mostly one block dead end streets. It's either dead end from the freeway to Toyota Center or where the building will be actually sitting on it. So they're not very impactful.
Can you repeat those? Can you repeat those? Because we can hear them.
Yeah. Old Hamilton, currently Hamilton, Schinnever, Jackson, Clay, and Polk.
There's only two signs.
But only portions of those, okay, not the entire way. So just portions of where the new convention center will sit. See if we could go back to. Okay, can you share that?
Two signs.
So the streets that I mentioned within the footprint of the blue dotted line, it's a little bit washed out on the screen right here. But those 4 blocks, the streets that I mentioned.
Can you show us the application with the map? That would be really helpful. The JRC application.
We don't have it currently tonight, but it's public.
Share a copy of the application with the community because Texas Public Information Act.
Well, we'll go ahead and get that out. We'll get that out. So as soon as I get the application from Public Works, we'll get it out to you. We'll send it to the super neighborhood leadership.
You could easily build North Avenida Garage in the south and build this thing in the north, and not impact anything.
Yes.
So, what I was told, and I added one.
So the reason Public Works has not released, because we have gotten requests, is because it's a public document. So the process is to submit it through the TPIA portal. Apparently, one of the requests actually was sent to the AG for a determination. Once that determination is back and they say, okay, we can go ahead and release it, or whatever the determination says, then we'll act accordingly. But that's why Public Works hasn't released it for individual requests, because it has to go through the TPA process. So that's why we haven't released.
My question is on that specifically, because there was a Public Information Act request to get the maps to show the abandonment. That was referred to the AG's office, which put a hold on it for up to 45 days. The concern is that that 45-day period would fall outside the public comment period, meaning that the public would not have a chance to see the map that they're weighing on. I think one of the big concerns of the neighborhood was that this period is closing as soon as April 3rd without any ability of the public to monitor the street maps of what's being shown. The question, I think, from the room tonight, because it sounds like there's not a lot of flexibility on the part of Houston First, that the flexibility is having to come from the city of Houston to design around those Houston First designs. Is there any harm in delaying or postponing temporarily the abandonment? Because the abandonment, once it's finished, is permanent. It's gone forever. So I think the room's question is, why is it happening now, and why does it have to happen so fast?
So when we get, let me answer your first question about the 45-day period. So when we get the comment back from the AG's office, if that does fall outside, sometimes they respond sooner than that. We don't mind extending the public comment period until after the public can get that release. We don't mind doing that. Your other question was, remind me?
Just extending the public comment.
Well,
Just also the vote.
Well, so in terms of the actual abandonment, that doesn't happen until after it's presented to City Council. So what JRC does is they approve the application. So I gave my spiel the first time I was here, but just as a quick reminder, when we get the application and the application is complete, it's reviewed by it's reviewed by the 8 committee members that sit on the JRC. And so then you either get an approval with conditions, or a denial. And if it's denied, it stops right then. And what they do is they essentially look at the application and see if it's feasible. It's then at the phase where we are now, where we post signs on the street for public comment.
So I think my question is to that second part. I think the room would like to know what's the harm that would happen to the development, to the plans, if that comment period were extended further, because there is clear disagreement about the plans, so that there is more time for the public to digest. Is there harm, is that the position, I guess, and that's a question for Houston First, would be, is there harm in pushing this back a little bit, giving it a delay so that the public has more time to digest?
Great. And I'm not going to be able to answer that tonight, but what I will do is we'll go back with our team and we'll look at the timeline, and we'll be happy to get you directly back an answer. And if you want to, the council member wants to share that out with everybody, we'd be happy to, we'll get you an answer on that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I don't think that we need more time to digest it. You need more time to reevaluate the plan, because none of us like it.
We're already past 8, but I want to make sure that these, we'll make sure that we document these other questions that have not been answered. But this one kind of leads us into next steps for the most part. It says, the neighborhood has many ideas for improving the GRB proposal, and in various media interviews, we have heard you commit to ongoing public engagement. Will you honor that commitment and agree to attend a follow-up public meeting hosted by Super Neighborhoods in April before the council vote? So council won't vote in April, by the way. It takes a lot longer for the JRC process. We have to do a request for council action in RCA, that has to go through legal. So there's a lot more steps in approving a JRC at council agenda. So there won't be a vote in April after or even if we can extend this, it's not gonna happen right away. And I will be keeping everybody updated with all of these different
Can
timelines.
Houston First come back before the comment
One
period
second.
is over?
Yes, so this is, let me finish the question, because that's exactly what it's asking. So, will you honor that commitment and agree to attend a follow-up public meeting hosted by Super Neighborhoods in April to address our remaining questions and offer more clarity on the issues raised this evening?
We'd be happy to provide more clarity and answer more questions at that time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this one's a similar question. Will you and Houston First commit to another open door community meeting before this goes to the council vote? And as Michael mentioned, yes, and from me, from my council office and some of the colleagues that I have here, we're all meeting with Houston First, with Public Works. And I'm committed to making sure that we have more engagement, especially because there was no engagement prior to 3 weeks ago. And so I'm committed to making sure that we have more of these types of meetings, and not just on the George R. Brown expansion, but there's a lot of things that are going on. This Saturday, Mason Park, I hope you go to that meeting. You know, we're having other things that are happening across the district, and I hope you attend as well. You know, we had this past, about a week and a half ago, we had a Department Neighborhood Forum in the Hobby area, and there are some folks that were here that were there. My goal is to make sure that we have all the meetings that we can so that we're informed, because it's not an easy thing to kind of just digest. And so you need to hear more from departments. You need to hear more from organizations like Houston First, from a conservancy that we now have at Mason Park. They need, they're there to help with different things that are happening. The Harrisburg TERS that is here, the East Downtown TERS, East Downtown Management District. There's public meetings that are open to everyone. The East End Management District meeting is a public meeting as well. We'll continue to post all of those opportunities for you to go to those meetings. It's important that you do know what's happening. It's important that you know all the different stakeholders that are doing things in the East End. And so when Metro has their public meetings for what they're trying to do with Metro now, my hope is that you attend as well. Good or bad.
Sorry, it's not just for us to understand what's happening, it's also for you.
Feedback as well. Yes, correct.
We're proposing this. You tell us this is going to happen. We're not proposing it. You tell us what's going to happen.
Any question?
Yes, just one last question regarding the JRC process, and maybe Houston First can help chime in on this, but it's our understanding that there has to be a fair market value for the abandonment of Polk Street, i.e. Houston First has to pay a price. What is that? What is the dollar amount being offered for Polk, and what has Houston First budgeted for that?
So we are not at that part of the process yet. As far as the JRC process concerns, we're actually very early on because once we do the public notice after the comment period ends, that's typically when we notify, okay, this is the laundry list of things you have to do. Within that laundry list is getting a survey of the city property that's to be abandoned. Once the survey is complete, we have the accurate square footage, then we get appraisals. At that point, the appraisals tell us what the fair market value is. And so that has to be done, completed, as well as Centerpoint has to be contacted, AT&T has to be contacted, other conditions have to be complete before, and the money has to be received before we even send it to prepare the RCA for council preparation. So we don't have a figure for you yet.
Thank you. But does Houston First have a number? Is it in the budget?
It will be whatever the city drives this process. And if we submitted the application, we'll do what's required to carry it forward.
If you're doing this in October, you should already have that number.
We're very early, again, we're early on in the process, so we haven't ordered the survey and we haven't done the appraisal. That part isn't done, and I say we, but typically they're the ones who order the survey, we approve it within the city as to what's to be abandoned, and then we order the appraisals. We haven't gotten that far yet, because what happens is all of that occurs after the public comment period ends. We're still in the public comment period, so that hasn't happened unless somebody's doing it proactively behind the scenes, but that, we haven't gotten to that part of the process yet.
Thank you.
Say it's done, we're still in the public comment.
Yes, we're
Say
still.
it's done.
What is the Georgia O'Brien expansion design is where they're speaking to. They still are waiting for the JRC process to be completed. So
they spent
Did you
money on
understand-
design and they don't know if that land's even gonna be available? Just so I understand.
that's exactly what's going on.
Really?
Yes.
How do you think
So it's 8:07. It's 8:07.
Councilmember, when is Houston First's next public board meeting? As a local government corporation, they're required to follow the Texas Open.
They do, and people showed up.
So when is the next one?
Thursday at 8 o'clock.
8 a.m.?
8 a.m.
Where?
Thursday, 8 a.m. at.
Oh, it's all publicly posted at Partnership Tower at our offices.
Is there a virtual option?
We have work.
So the next meeting is Thursday at 8 a.m. At the Partnership Tower, and y'all are welcome to it again. These are all public meetings that y'all can attend. And we did have about half a dozen. We had half a dozen residents show up to the last meeting. I want to thank them for showing up as well to those that were here, that are here. And so we're past 8. If you have questions, I'm going to be here. We have the cards that we have not been able to answer, but majority of them were. They were grouped up in funding, access, east-west connection, the funding for the cat park, the timeline, the design. So my team's going to gather those questions. We'll share those out to all of the leadership for the different super neighbors. If you're not on their email list, get their email list, get on their email list as well. We'll share that out as well as an email from my office. That will, again, if you're not on our email list, get on our email list. There's several things that are happening outside of just today's meeting as well. So with that, I want to thank my colleagues that have stayed here with me. They're hearing you as well. We have staff from other offices that are here. I want to thank the different stakeholders that are here to answer questions. I'll be here. If you want to come up and keep throwing arrows at me, I'll be here.